This is 2024's The Idea of You. Warning, spoilers ahead. Solène goes through some books that she's considering reading, but she's interrupted by one of her friends, Tracy. Solène tells her about how her daughter Izzy got a VIP all-access pass to see one of her favorite boy bands at Coachella, and soon her friends show up for the trip as well. Solène doesn't seem too excited about it though, and it turns out that she's going to be camping alone through the whole vacation. I mean, if this is a group activity, I could see how some people would frown at the idea of camping alone, but camping without dealing with someone while being disconnected from the world sounds like paradise right about now. While Solène has come to terms with the fact that she's camping alone this trip, Izzy isn't so sure, and she checks in on her while they drive to their next destination. Here, Solène awkwardly greets Eva, and she drops Izzy and her friends off to enjoy their boy band trip. I get it now. Meet Daniel, the ex-husband. And Eva over there? That's the homewrecker. Talk about awkward. Daniel tries to invite her over for pickleball or something, but Solène really doesn't see how she could ever do that. Just as Solène is getting in the car to go on her lonely camping trip, Daniel pulls up with everyone else in the back. It turns out that his job is needing him right now, so he needs her to take everyone to Coachella instead. Solène really doesn't want to do it, but Izzy and her friends pretty much leave her no choice. Coachella really isn't Solène's kind of scene, but she hopes to make the best out of it while the kids enjoy the concerts. Solène tries to find a spot to read her book in peace, but she gets questioned by a woman her age who is really just hoping to talk to the boys in the boy band. Do you know who she reminds me of? Every mom back when Justin Bieber and the Jonas Brothers were starting out. No judgment here, but this lady is definitely putting out those same vibes. Solène decides to escape to the bathroom, but she winds up mistaking Hayes' trailer for a VIP bathroom. Hayes is the lead singer of the boy band Izzy and her friends are there to see, and he's very confused right about now. After realizing her mistake, Solène goes to leave, but Hayes actually convinces her to stay for a little chat. The two of them bond over the fact that her daughter was a fan of his, and she quickly seems to become infatuated with him. Solène excuses herself to wait for Izzy at the meet and greet for the band, but she's running late. Hayes and Solène catch each other's eyes, and soon Izzy and her friends show up. The connection between Hayes and Solène is pretty obvious though, and soon Izzy takes notice. This is where Izzy should be her wingwoman, but it's Zeke to the rescue as he tells Hayes about Solène instead. That's the kind of person you want with you in these instances. Anyways, let's skip the boy band song. As Hayes and the guys get ready for their last song, Hayes tells the crowd that he met an inspiring woman earlier and he decides to dedicate the next song to her. He manages to spot her in the crowd and he sings the song directly to her. To top it off, the song is about finding an older lady to love. What are the chances? After the group gets back to their normal life, Solène has her 40th birthday party and she gets hit on by a rather excited Todd. After that, there are plenty of other colorful dudes with their own baggage and quirks. Let's just say that the pickings are slim for Solène in this town. She might have Hayes on her mind, but anything would be better than the guys talking to her at this party. The next morning, Solène opens up her art gallery for the day, but later that same day, she's called to the front for an emergency. It turns out that Hayes is visiting, and he tries to play it off like he just needs some art for his flat in London. By the end of the visit, Hayes decides to buy everything in the gallery, and Solène agrees to take him to her friend's warehouse to see some more art. In order to get him out of the area without the paparazzi or fans noticing, they decide to go in Solène's car as he lays the seat back, and soon they're at the warehouse. After seeing some more inspirational art, Hayes asks Solène to tell him more about herself and life story, and after sharing a little bit about her aspirations in life, he tells her about how he got into a boy band. For a run-of-the-mill romantic comedy, this seems to have a way of getting really profound out of nowhere in between all the basic comedy jabs. I have to give it a little credit. Solène questions what they're really doing here, and he tells her that he just doesn't meet people like her very often and he wants to know more. With that out of the way, they decide to go out to eat, but after realizing that the public eye is hard to escape, they decide to go back to Solène's house so she can make him a sandwich. When they get home, they find out Solène's fridge has gone out, and they decide to get working on seeing if the food is good or bad. Probably the last thing you would really expect a hotshot celebrity to be doing on a makeshift first date, but Hayes is going the extra mile. They continue their personal conversation over lunch, and Solène ends up telling him about how her and Daniel started and ended their relationship. Long story short, Eva screwed it all up. Solène tried to just move on like it didn't happen, but Daniel put the nail in the coffin. I mean, you'll fall in love with whoever it's meant to be with, but at least do it the right way when you're already with someone else. The conversation is going well, but Izzy calls just as Seline finishes her side of the story. Hayes heads over to the piano to play a tune, and when Seline comes back, they share a bit of physical intimacy. The two of them kiss, but Seline really thinks that she's too old for Hayes. Hayes isn't giving up though, and he tells her that he wants to see her again. He leaves his watch on her table, and as he leaves, Izzy pops up without even noticing him. After Izzy finishes packing for camp, Seline gives her a ride, and they enjoy each other's company on the way. When Seline gets back home, she starts receiving texts from Hayes about their kiss, and he invites her over to his hotel in New York later that weekend. Okay, at this point, it's clear that he's not just treating her like another groupie, so I think it's safe to say that he really means everything he says. Is there an age gap? Yeah, but he's well into his legal years and just now starting all of this. Go for it! Later that weekend, Seline hops on a plane and she goes to the Essex Hotel in New York. Hayes is happily surprised to see her at his door, and they waste no time in getting down to business once he lets her in. Even after the private time, things seem to be going well between the lovers as Hayes' young spirit shows off his funnier side in the hotel. The next morning, Hayes tells Seline that he's heading to Europe for the rest of the tour, and he wants her to come with him for the rest of the tour. She tries to come up with every excuse not to go, but he has an answer for everything she says. Well, Seline ends up agreeing to go, and they decide to introduce her as his art consultant. Who has one of those? And I'm sorry, let's be more specific. What boy band singer has an art consultant? At every venue that the band sings at, Hayes makes sure to sing to Seline personally during every set, and they make their way around Europe loving in secret. Seline makes sure to keep things a secret to Izzy, though. After many nights in Europe, Hayes and Seline kiss each other in a public restaurant, and there are paparazzi taking pictures nearby without them knowing. Seline thinks that the kiss was reckless, but Hayes doesn't care. The next day, the band and their guests head to a private villa in the French countryside, and Seline becomes a little self-conscious about wearing a bathing suit in front of the other younger guests. Good God! She decides to come out in a denim sack instead? If anything was going to make me self-conscious, I'd say that would do it. Hayes and Ollie join them in the chairs, and it's clear that Ollie isn't too happy about Hayes being with Seline instead of partying with them like he used to. After trying to pry into their personal life a bit, the group really digs in after Seline thinks that Hayes dedicated that first song to her at Coachella. It turns out that it's a bit that the guys do whenever they find a cute girl everywhere they go. Seline is furious, and she leaves them by the pool. Hayes goes to talk with her, but Seline thinks that this thing between them should just end. Hayes wants them to keep going, but Seline is trying to connect this situation with Hayes to the one she went through with Daniel. Hayes clearly feels the way he's saying, but I completely get where Seline is coming from. Oh snap! Now Hayes is getting on her about keeping them a secret, and Seline has come to a complete standstill with her argument. The worst thing she could say is that she's ashamed to be with him. And guess what? That's exactly what she says. After hearing this, Hayes leaves and sets up a flight back home for Seline. When she gets home, she finds a gift from one of her artists, and it turns out that Hayes convinced an artist she admired to give her her favorite piece. The next day, Daniel and Eva come over to drop off a car for Izzy's 17th birthday, and he apparently has a friend who spotted Hayes and Seline kissing in France. What are the freaking chances? Daniel tries to give her relationship advice, but Seline denies having a relationship with Hayes. When Daniel walks away, Eva tries to tell Seline that she's leaving Daniel, and she leaves it at that. Over the next couple days, Seline finds herself to be miserable and alone, but things really take a turn when Hayes texts her about photos that were put online. Well, the relationship has gone viral, and Seline heads to camp to talk things out with Izzy. Seline has definitely become a sort of celebrity and idol, but Izzy is just surprised that she didn't tell her sooner. In fact, Izzy admits that she could have handled the relationship, but she hates that she lied about it. On the other hand, she thinks that people who are making fun of her age in the situation are terrible, and they shouldn't matter. So there's still quite a bit of movie left to go, so I can't imagine that the happy ending is coming now. Seline just pops up at the studio he's recording at, and things are just going to go back to being okay? Apparently, yes. Okay, let's go. Hayes and Seline agree to make things official, and Izzy and her friends agree to help with everything as well. Headlines don't look very promising, but Hayes continues moving forward in the public eye. One morning, Daniel storms over to Seline's house, and he's greeted by Hayes. Daniel is anything but cordial, but Seline puts him in his place as best she can. As Daniel leaves to take Izzy to school, Hayes mentions that he has to leave to deal with some trouble with Ollie. Later at the studio, Tracy comes over to check in on Seline, but Seline has to leave quickly to pick up Izzy from school. Apparently, no one is happy about Seline and Hayes, and Izzy is getting the brunt of it at school. Damn, teenagers really don't give up, do they? Izzy asks to stay at Daniel's house for a little while to deal with everything easier, and Seline goes home to read some of the comments people have been posting. A few days later, she heads to the airport to pick up Hayes, but this turns into a breakup instead. Hayes tells her that he'd rather quit the band than give up on them, but Seline thinks that would just make things worse. And with that, Seline calls it quits again. Later that night, Hayes shows up at Seline's house and he tells her that he loves her. She tells him that she loves him too, and they get up close and personal inside. Hayes wants her to think about picking things up once Izzy is out of school, but Seline makes him promise to move on if he gets the chance. Wow! Is this movie really going to give us a bittersweet ending? It would get high marks if it did. Hey! Jump ahead 5 years later. I could get behind this kind of ending. Seline seems to be doing fairly well on her own with Izzy away from home, and she comes across Hayes singing on a talk show one night. He's become a famous solo artist now, and he's still singing songs that were meant for Seline and their love. During the interview, Hayes admits that he wants to catch up with someone in the States, and after his tour is done, he really does show up to see Seline. Then the credits roll. Yep, that's the kind of ending I could get behind. Happy, but not easy. Very well done. Give it a shot. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this one. Comment what you think I should watch next, and I'll see you in the next video.